Get ready to dive into the future of technology as we explore the groundbreaking world of digital twin technology. The concept of digital twins is rapidly gaining momentum and it's reshaping the way that we interact with our physical environment. And today I'm thrilled to introduce to you NV5 Geospatial's Vice President, Ron Chapple, who will be shedding light on this cutting edge technology. I'm your host, Jared Green, and I'm excited to be bringing you another episode of the Geotechnical Engineering Podcast. And with that, let's dive right into today's episode. Ron, welcome to the show. Glad that you could be here with us. How are you doing?
I'm great, Jared, and thanks for the invitation. Looking forward to speaking with you today.
Excellent. All right, well, it'd be great if you could help set the stage for us. Tell us a little bit more about yourself, talk about your career journey, and also talk about how you got to your role now as Vice President of Global Strategic Solutions, Digital Twins at NV5 Geospatial.
Sure. No. Well, first of all, Jared, I got to say I'm not an engineer, so I kind of snuck in here.
You snuck in.
So that camera system that you put on the nose of helicopters and film planet Earth and that type of thing. So my clients were National Geographic, BBC, PBS, along with my fair share of reality shows that we don't talk about.
Okay.
And then I went from there to we were in the helicopter, and we did a lot of work filming like power lines. And the first client that called said, "Hey, I want you to film a power line." We're like, "What's that for?" I said, "Well, maybe we'll win an Oscar, filming power lines." But soon enough, we were next to people doing LiDAR of power lines, and that kicked off a whole new sort of thought process of how can I use the skills that I have in this geospatial world, because they were already being requested. I'd always had this curiosity, which we'll now call a geospatial perspective of where am I? People would say, "Yeah, that's a beautiful scene. Where am I? What am I looking at?" So from there, moved into the geospatial world, which is very closely connected to the engineering world. And 2 years ago, my company, which was the name Geo1, was acquired by NV5.
Okay.
And here I am today. So
That's great. It's amazing. You think you know what it is you're doing, and all of a sudden you're doing something totally different, but you're still doing the same thing. So it'd be great if you could help our listeners and viewers that might not be familiar. How would you define a digital twin? And why is that becoming an important concept for geospatial engineering and in other industries?
Sure. Well, first of all, Jared, a digital twin is not something that's new. A digital twin, the words came around, say, early 2000s, but back in 1970, when the Apollo 13 had that, near tragic accident, NASA had thought ahead to build a full-scale model, or what we'll now call a digital twin, of that capsule. And they were able to remotely solve the issues to translate that information to the crew, which ultimately ended up saving the lives of 3 astronauts. Wow. So it was by having a fully functional replica on the ground of what the real world was. So if we think of digital twins, it's not just a pretty picture. We'll have some people call us and say, we want a 3D model of a city. That in itself is not the digital twin, but it's the foundation of a digital twin. A true digital twin is when you have a exact replica of the built world. And in that digital model, there are connections between the real world and the digital world, so that all information, if it's a city, whether it's, traffic, temperature, CO2 levels, all of that information is pushed into the digital twin, so that someone that is working within that digital twin environment has all the information you would as if you were, say, standing on the street in that urban area.
Excellent. And what are some types of leading edge technologies and sensors that you and your team are using to reality capture and also for recreation of a digital twin? Like, what types of things are you using to get that information?
Sure. No, great question, Jared. The sensors that we're using, and I'll start out on the reality capture side of it. The ideal digital twin, at least the foundation of it visually, is to use very high-end or high-fidelity LiDAR systems matched with cameras that can capture, say, 1 centimeter or 2 centimeter ground sample distance from an altitude of 500 to 1,000 feet. You can do really anything from, drone to helicopter to fixed wing. What we like to do is use sensors that are state of the industry so that we have data that will have a long life to it. One of the thoughts in collecting the highest resolution data is if you can't see it, you can't inspect it. So, a client might say, well, we just need to get this today. That's all we can afford. And we'll push, back and say, of course, we want to meet your needs. But if you just spend a little bit more, then this data is going to have a much longer shelf life.
Makes sense. And then, when you think about digital twins, at least in my circles, you hear a lot about it now. Where do you think we are on the hype curve? Are we almost done? Or are we still figuring this thing out? And why do you think that, there's a resurgence in this technology? Like, why are we talking about it now as opposed to, like you said, NASA was looking at this some decades ago? Like, why do you think it's so hot now?
It's another good question, Jared, is because a digital twin is a very overused word. I would think, depending on the industry and the sector, we're at different places on the hype curve. What has made this phrase sort of bubble up a lot over the last year and a half, 2 years, is that we're at this intersection of massively increased compute power, much lower cost storage, and software that's finally taking advantage of, say, multi-core distributed processing. So it's a massive amount of data. One of the projects we just did acquire every 1 second we were collecting a gigabyte of data. So you can imagine how much storage that is. And let alone storing it, you have to transfer it and you have to process that data.
Yeah.
Projects can often take, even with 10 or 20 or 30 nodes, can often take a week to 10 days of just processing to create that image, the first reality capture. So I would say we're beyond that peak of inflated expectations, but we're not in the trough of disillusionment, at all. I would say we're starting to come back up out of that slope of enlightenment a little bit, so that we're beginning to see how this can, how a digital twin can have a positive impact on our lives.
Excellent. Can you share a specific example of how digital twins are being used in different industries today, but one that really points to the potential for the application itself?
Sure. One of the quickest returns that we've seen, or ROIs, is in facility management. And this is not necessarily reality capture, but it's going into a building, mapping out absolutely everywhere there's a pipe or a conduit or an HVAC duct, and then adding in real-time data for that, HVAC data, electric use, utility use. We are seeing on average about a 17% immediate return to the client in better facility management. But along with that, in one of our interviews with our clients, a facility manager said, you know what, we spend 30% of a person's time doing nothing but looking for instruction manuals. So they may have been given a PDF when that HVAC unit was installed, but they can't find it anymore. It was on paper. It's been given away, or the person that used to manage that has retired. So working with, say, Autodesk Tandem, we can have all of those manuals and right there. So all they have to do is click on a machine and see the manual, and not only see the manual, but be able to see the service record history of when it was last serviced, and then also linked to call out for maintenance when it's needed. And that's where that full cycle of a digital twin comes in. You have that built world in the digital world and information passing between the two to inform them.
Got it. Now, can you think of one key problem that digital twins are helping to solve, and how are they enhancing the decision-making and risk mitigation for your clients? So you hinted at some of this, what you just talked about, but can you delve in a little more?
Sure. Yeah. Risk comes in all different, shapes and sizes, whether it's, managing a building or managing the environment. Clients are not, I can't say this to all clients, but we're in that, part of that learning curve where we have to invest heavily up front to get the reality capture or to build the model that we need to then start adding the data to. So I think the challenge right now is, getting people on board to understand and see the return on investment. Often a digital twin may not have been a line item budget for the last 10 years. So Sure. It's going to take 2 or 3, sales cycles, which could be, 2 or 3 years to get a client to say, hey, let's try this. So we're starting out with projects where there is a known return on investment. And kind of going from, the known return on investment, we're also at the beginning of that, whole AI phase. And we've just barely scratched the surface on what that can also bring to, a functional digital twin.
Wow. So lots of opportunity. So let's see, when you look ahead, where do you see the future of digital twin technology going, and what advancements are you most excited about?
So the digital twin is going to be the visual and functional background or foundation for an immersive experience. And that immersive experience could be simply on the educational or media and entertainment side, or it could be in running a whole city or a whole state. So increasingly, there's always a shortage of skilled labor, in lots of different sectors. So by being able to bring together a digital twin that has that information coming in from real-time IoT sensors to being able to train people in an environment that they may not have been in before. So one example would be, let's just say you have a security or say police in a city, and there's a concert, and there may be something that they are anticipating. They need to be prepared that something bad could happen at that concert. How do you run like 100 different scenarios on what could happen and look for the unanticipated consequence? And I think that's one of the advantages of having a really fantastic reality capture combined with great sensor data and combined with AI can help save lives. Because we just can't think of everything. And that's where AI can, say, spit out 1,000 alternatives in a matter of minutes.
Yeah, got it. Thank you so much. Let's see, before we take our break, final piece of advice you'd like to give, and again, this is to geotechnical engineers who are interested in exploring and working with digital twin technology. So what do you have to tell us?
So, life is awesome and it's random. And I think that wherever you start out, just keep your eyes wide open at new opportunity and new ways to apply your skills. One of the things that's going to happen with digital twins is the opportunity for new careers that we don't even have job titles for yet.
Yeah.
So if you're a young engineer, just, you've got a great life ahead and a lot of opportunity. You've got a lot of smarts going for you. So just be on the lookout for a new opportunity that this may generate. It might be listening to an outlier and somebody saying, well, what about this or what about that? But if you jump in and learn, it's going to be a great life.
Love it. Thank you so much. And that's definitely advice that you've applied, looking at what you're doing now. So that's great. So thank you so much, Ron. We're going to come back in just a minute and close this one out with Ron in our Career Factor Safety In segment. Stick around. All right, welcome back. It's time for our career factor safety end segment. In geotechnical engineering, just like other disciplines of engineering, it's important to incorporate a factor safety into your design. But what about incorporating a factor safety into your career? Today, of course, we're speaking with Ron Chapple of NV5 Geospatial. Now, Ron, you've already had a very successful career. But when you look back in your career, what's something you've implemented in your career to give yourself, let's call it a factor of safety in your career?
Yeah, no, great question, Jared. I think for me, moving through, a continuous career, but different types of opportunities, is to trust yourself and go with your gut, because we sometimes make decisions with pencil and paper, and other times we need to apply just our intuition and look at what's out there and trust our gut. And most of all, just do work that is satisfying. Don't just do the same thing every day, but look for how you can make yourself just a little better every day, and that is going to result in a fantastic career path.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Ron, for coming on and for sharing all the great insights with us. You shared some information and some advice I know it's going to be helpful for our listeners and those that are watching. So if someone hears this and they want to find you, what's the best way for them to reach out to you? You're on social media, or you have an email you can share and we can put in the show notes?
Yeah, probably email is the best way to reach me. It's ron.chapple@nv5.com. And you spell my last name, CH with an apple.
All right, great.
Yeah, I'm also on LinkedIn, so you can check me out on LinkedIn as well.
Excellent. Ron, thanks for coming on. This is great.
Hey, thanks, Jared. Really enjoyed our time together.
Excellent. I hope you enjoyed the episode today. We would love to hear your feedback, comments, and our questions. Please feel free to go to geotechnicalengineeringpodcast.com, where you'll find a summary of the key points discussed in today's episode, as well as links to any of the resources, websites, or books mentioned during this episode. Until next time, I wish you the very best in all of your geotechnical engineering endeavors. Peace.